Okay, hello YouTubers. I'm gonna do a little video today on putting these together. Alright, so if you saw my other video, basically what I do is I buy the Regatta 3/4 inch plywood. It's like I think I'm saying it wrong, but it's just like the fancier plywood. Then I cut it all down into 1.5 inch strips. This is just for the big ones. I do all different sizes, but so it's 36 inch by 1.5 inch strips. Some people buy them already done, but I like to cut them myself, sand them, then cut them. Sorry, I like to sand them with at least a 220 grit. Sometimes I go up to 400, but that's, you know, only if I have that laying around. But 220 is fine. But just what I also do is whenever I got extra boards or whatever, I always just set them aside, and eventually you can build other ones from them. Or, you know, if I'm cutting a board and they're all 1.5 inch and one comes up to, you know, 1.25 or 1, I set it aside and I'll just make a smaller flag with it. But basically, so I sand them, cut them, and then I start painting or staining and stenciling, depending on, you know, what stencils people are looking for. I also have like wooden stars and stuff like that. So I'm gonna get into, you know, maybe doing some routering and some 3Ds and stuff. But for right now, this is just a project I'm doing temporarily, maybe permanently. Who knows? See how it goes. This is one of my customers. Had this asked for a custom one, and I didn't have a stencil for that. So what I did was I bought blank stencils, traced out what I wanted, cut it, and then put it on, painted it. And for the whenever I get any kind of overlay on the paint or anything, when I'm doing a stencil or something, I don't like to keep it like that. So usually what I'll do is I'll take a chisel. Doesn't necessarily have to be this one, but and what I'll do is I'll scrape right up to whatever it is, really softly, just soft enough to not remove. Like, let's say I'm doing this, I want to get the extra white off, so I would push up right until it gets to the star, but not deep enough in order to remove the black, and then have to repaint the black. Okay, and then depending on well, this one actually, what I did also is I did the chisel, and then I went around it with actually a magic marker. But you know, sometimes I'll do a paintbrush. But that's also because I have a very steady hand, because I'm a barber during the day. So, like this one is paint, and with a burn. So what I'll do is I'll take these boards. See if I have any left. I don't right now. Okay, I'll take these boards and I'll burn them with the torch. And then this one I put some varnish on. So this is varnish. This is paint. Okay, and this is so the varnish has you know, clear coat on it. This one hasn't been sanded, so as you can see, it's grainy. Okay, that's the only thing about doing polys and stuff like that is they're grainy. So you have to, the first coat you have to sand down, and then the second coat you have to put on really thin. That's how you get a really nice sheen on it. This is burn, and then just a little bit of paint. And when I painted it, it's spray paint. And when I painted it, I didn't put a lot on. And what happens is the first coat soaks in it really deep. So it soaks up like most of the color. So as long as you don't overdo it, you can see a lot of the burn through it. And, you know, obviously the more you do, the less you're going to see the burn. And then different colors do act differently. Okay, so those are, so that's red paint. That's white paint. That is varnish over just a burn. Most people want them burned, so most of them don't stay like this, but occasionally I have couple that you know, people want them you know, without the burn, or should I just say natural? Okay, so now this one I have not put any kind of clear coat or anything on, but this one's going to get polyurethane. The polyurethane I use, here's two more that I'm making. Okay, so this one right here is going to be just like these two. Okay, now this one, this is white stain on top of burned wood. This is red stain on top of burned wood. Okay, and then this is blue paint that I put on very lightly after I burned it. And then when I do my stars, I like to do them just a little bit different. So, you know, I just kind of, when I spray, I'm very random with it because I want dark spots and light spots, and dark spots and light spots. And then what I've been using lately is the Minwax. It's actually a spar urethane, and it's the reason I use this one. This is probably one of the more expensive ones out there. Although it's a great product, like I said, it's expensive, but and you can get it in, you know, satin, gloss, whatever. I just usually get the gloss because if I don't want a gloss, then I just don't put a gloss on, or don't put a coating on it. But most people do. So the other option is doing spray can clear coat, because then it's not as thick. That's what the black one is. That's just spray can clear coat. This is usually what I use for my white when it comes to the stars, because this is a fast drying paint and it does, you know, decent coverage but not too much. And I get it for like $3 a can, I think. True Value. The Minwax you can get anywhere. Sometimes I get it at True Value. Sometimes I get it at Tractor Supply, Home Depot. Mineral spirits too. You know, if you have any that are dirty, the mineral spirits will really clean it up nicely. But you cannot put mineral spirits or urethane on this if it has not completely dried. So these are not getting clear coated tonight, because if I do, the colors will run into the next one, and that defeats the whole purpose of cutting them apart, is because I don't want paint lines. I want everything to look very solid and uniform. So, okay, now this one over here, this is a poly, and you can see that one almost looks like glass. Okay, and this one's also now on this one, when you feel it, it is super smooth. It feels really smooth, and it almost feels wet, and it's not. It's been sitting here for probably almost 8 hours. But on this one, if you look down, you can see a little bit of grain. You can't feel it, but you can see a little bit of the grain. That's because I put the first coat on too rough. I mean, I'm sorry, too thick. Now this one, okay, as you can see, this is just like the sample that I showed you. The reason I have an extra one is because I needed the blue, so I painted one blue, and then I put the other one aside and use it for another project. So this has red mahogany stain, and then no stain, and the whole thing is polyed. And this is blue paint, this is black paint, and white stars. And as you can see on these ones, I put the stars on a little heavier. Okay, so it's just the different, you know, different preferences on, you know, shininess and stuff like that. Here's a toe one I did. Okay, this one is, what I did was I did black paint, yellow paint, all on burn. Same thing with the Union. And I did silver paint, and the silver was too strong. So what I did was I sanded down the silver, and it becomes like gray and almost, you know, worn looking. And this is the look the guy wanted anyway, so it worked out perfect. So this is the second one like this that I've done. And the one over here that I just showed you, this one is gray stain. black stain, yellow paint, and white stars in paint. So this is a little more of a solid look. Now this particular gray, it's a really strong gray, so you can't see the wood grain as much. It's there, you can't see it as much. So if you're going to use a weathered gray, I recommend putting it on really light. So the next one I make, I'll probably do lighter than that, but just because I like to mix it up. But so now here's the point of the video today, actually, is putting the other one together. Okay, so now first thing you're going to want to do is make sure everything is really clean. It's a nice piece of walnut my buddy Tim gave me. Probably made that into a small cutting board. A little bit awkward, I'll probably have to cut some of it off, but nice piece of wood. So just make sure everything is nice and clean. You don't want all this stuff all over. Okay, now for my braces, what I cut was, I believe these are, yeah, just I think they're 18.5 inches long, and they're 3/4 inch wide or tall. And with that, I use a 1.5 inch brad nail, which I'm about to run out of. Okay, so now what I like to do when I'm testing one, if I'm making a new one and I'm not sure if it's going to go through, what I'll do is take one of the pieces of wood, put it down, make sure that these are the same height, which they are. Okay, so these two are the same height, because I don't want to waste this wood. There's just a piece of scrap right here. So now what I do is make sure that the nail goes through and doesn't touch anything. And all I do is make sure that I have plenty of room for no pop outs or anything like that on the other side. And as you can see, that'll more than suffice, but yet is in there deep enough. So it's just a little trick. I don't know if that's a trick, but okay, so now the first thing you have to do, okay, is look at your star orientation on your union. This whole thing's called a union. Okay, the star has to point up. Okay, so this is the way I want it. So normally when I make a flag, I would put it this way. And then the stripes would be on this side. Okay, so when you flip it, banging around here on the radial arm saw, which comes in very handy. Okay, now, so I'm making sure that the stars are pointing up, and I'm flipping it. So even though it goes over here, I'm flipping it over to the opposite side. So do not forget that, or otherwise, when you're done, you'll be very aggravated. If you have my temperament, anyway. Okay. So from there, now if you want to set it up first and then flip it, you can, but I've done this so many times. Now, the first thing I need to do is look for my top piece, which I forgot to make. Okay, and what I mean by that, I might have just put it on one of the other ones on accident. I need to do the side on one of them because that's going to be the top, and I don't want that showing. So that means once I put it together, I'll stain that real quick, and it's just the top edge, and it's just something I like to do. I like to do the bottoms too. You know, I do them both sides just in case I want to flip it or something. So I'll have to get that later, but that's just a little mistake I made. But so red, white, and just so you know, there's 4 short red and then 3 and 3 on the bottom. So it's 3 white long, 3 white small, 3 red long, 4 red short. So it's 13 stars, obviously, but it starts with red, ends with red. So, okay, I'm sure you can figure out the rest of this. Red, white, red, white, red, white, red. Obviously on these ones it doesn't matter, because they go from end to end. I believe with the long ones I did the same thing. I don't think I left myself an end piece on either of them. I might have just used it on the other one on accident. But that's part of what this video is about, is so you don't make those simple little mistakes. Okay. So now what I do is, this is a nice flat surface, but it's also not very wide. Okay, so I can clamp on this table. That's why I like to use this one. We do have a big workbench, but this one seems to work better for this. This camera's right where I normally put my stuff. Okay, now I have another, just, you know, basically scrap piece of wood. Okay. What I like to do is, I like to make sure the union's where I want it. Okay, and then I put, I'm pretty sure you can see that. No, sorry. Okay, so I get that piece of wood there. Okay, keep this with the union where I want it, and I just hold that there. And I come to the other side and just push them in all tight. Okay. Now, before I even worry about that, what I'm going to do is, because I have a fence right here, I have a wall there. Okay, since I have this fence here, I can push against that wall. I can just take one of these little clamps here. Okay, as I'm pushing against here. Okay, now that one side's on, now I can hold this again. Get these in here tight. Okay, push them down and everything, but the braces are going to do that anyway. Okay, I'm going to come over here and I do the same thing. Now, sometimes what I do, if they're really, sometimes you get a really bowed one, but usually, it's very seldom with this type of wood, as long as you cut with the grain. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just go through and give them a little tappy. Okay, and you hear it snapping because they're kind of like getting stuck, and then when they get unstuck. Okay, so that's basically what you're hearing. So I think I only brought over 3 on accident. Okay, a little bit of glue. Don't go too crazy. I like to do just enough where, you know, there's a decent amount, but I don't want it all squirting out the sides and looking gross. Alright, now what I did was, when I made these cuts, I did an inch short so that I have a 1/2 inch on each side. That way you don't really see it from the front. And then I usually put it over about 1 inch. Okay, and then when I do the brad nails, I like to go up first. That way I can worry about them all getting in there nice and tight the way they're supposed to be, and then worry about the second set to just kind of, you know, hold it a little bit tighter. So the first row is just to kind of make sure everything is where I want it. And then the second one is just to give it a little more structure, I guess you could say. The other thing is, make sure you don't hit any knots, because that's when you might have one jump out and not only hit you, but ruin the wood, and that's when you get all aggravated that, you know, your project looks however it looks. obviously use safety glasses and whatnot, hearing protection, whatever, but I'm sure everybody's shaking their head going, yeah, right, who does that? Okay, now on this one, okay, I just like to make sure they're in tight. And as long as they're in tight, when I put this piece down, it's going to push them down, so I'm not worried about that. Okay, all I want to do though is I want to make sure I put it exactly in the center. Okay, the wood in the center between these two. And that way, when I nail, my first set is all going into the union. There's nothing yet into here. Okay, so now this is all together, solid, and there's no bumps, there's no nothing. It's not super smooth, but it's flat. Okay, and now when I do the other set, not only locking this in, but everything's already where I want it to be. Okay, now I made sure that this side of the nail went into here. And these are, I'm not sure if I said, but these are just 2x4s that I cut down and cut into strips. It was just a lot cheaper. I was originally using scrap wood, but you know, eventually you run out of good scrap wood to do the same project over and over. Almost got that. Now the last thing I like to do before I pick this up, now all the brad nails are in, so the glue's still drying, but it doesn't matter, everything's together. But before this glue dries, I see right here, okay, as you can see, kind of missed one a little bit. So luckily it just looks a little ugly. It's not like it's going to go through the other side. But, okay, so before I pick it up, what I want to do is take my rubber mallet. And in New York, I'll tell you what, we had a warm day, and these damn stink bugs, they come out like crazy as soon as it warms up. But you can't squeeze them because they stink, so I got to take them outside. Sorry about that. So now I just like to take my rubber mallet and kind of go through it. And if there's anything that's not, let's see if I can get the camera to pick this up. Okay, so there's a gap right there, but I'm going to do this. I want to make my way from one side to the other first. The middle was really fine, but as you can see, there's a couple spots there. Okay. And there you have it. Okay. Put my tripod here without ruining some of my other flags. And there it is. Okay. Now, for some reason, no matter how much I clear off the table, there's still stuff on here. As long as it goes nice and slowly with your hand here, everything seems to come off. Occasionally, just because I use the rubber mallet, there'll be like a little piece of wood there that maybe I can't get off, and if you just kind of flick it up with your fingers, sometimes it's just got pressed into the wood a tiny bit. That's no big deal, especially on something that you're making look rustic. And there it is. There's one of my rustic American flags, and it's ready for some clear coat, but not till tomorrow, because unfortunately can't do it until this dries better. It seems fine. I can touch it with my hand. It's not going to come off. Nothing. But it doesn't matter. As soon as I put that urethane on, it's going to ruin it. So what I'll be doing right now is doing this, and that'll be it for the night. So thanks for watching. Subscribe and make some comments, and let me know what you think about it. Let me know if you got any ideas.